So, good morning, everybody. I'm the other guy that's going to talk about AI, so Mike did a great job of introducing. You guys sick of hearing about it, so I'm happy to talk more about it now. AI, like Mike said, is here. It's not going to go anywhere now. And the real fear around it for most people is it's going to take over what I do. And no matter what the profession is, you listen to the news and people talk. There's going to be less and less of us sitting in chairs doing something for someone, which is generally going to be our clients. And that's only about as much of a reality as if we let it be that way. Because the one thing that AI needs more than anything, and you read every study about it, it's context. And it's up to you to provide the context for AI to be effective. So, it can read lots of things, but reading lots of things generally doesn't help you understand the context of anything unless you get down one or two levels more under the surface to be able to help make an understanding or resolve conflicts that it may have with itself. So, one context in this profession, whether it's financial services, tax advisory, CPAs, whatever the fact may be, you've gotten to know your clients, you've gotten to know the intricacies of their business, and you've gotten to know, like Mike said, maybe a professional niche that they're sitting inside of, and that they're not here to take over, it is here to support in general terms. But the big fear is that it's never going to understand the context of our clients. So, hopefully today, what we can eliminate for you is some of the propaganda that comes with, having AI to be your that we can't do fast enough is read more of the things that happen outside of what may come into your general feed on your social media or what you look at professionally to make sure that you are having as much information or education for yourself before you talk to your clients. It will help with that, but we'll talk a little bit more about that today as we go on, and hopefully that dissolves some of that fear.
That's it. So I basically just going to pause it a couple slides, and really I want you to think about, are you going to be a leader in embracing AI in your workflow? Because what is happening out there is advisors all around the country that are pretending to be advisors. Anybody know what those are? We call those poachers. So there are people in individuals in wealth firms and other companies that are going after our clients that are basically saying, I can do ERTC, I can do R&D tax credit, I can do these, and I have a better system than you can put together, and your CPA or enrolled agent doesn't know what they're doing. Does that make sense? That's exactly what's happening even while we're up on stage. I know this because I talk all around the country, and I'm actually hearing and sitting in the crowds going, wow, there are people coming after my clients. So immediately when I leave these events, I go right back to my client base, because I'm a practicing CPA, and let them go. Look, we've talked about R&D before. They're texting me, I'm away for them to communicate. If they hear something on TikTok, or they hear something from somebody that I get to go at least go use AI and figure out real quickly, have I ever communicated to that thought to my client, or do I need to get busy? So I'm gonna let Adam go into what a human thinker is.
Great. So I was a non-believer, or at least non-acceptor of AI through the last couple of years. And in my business, I was a banker for 25 plus years at two large global banks. I ran a payments company that I started and sold to Goldman Sachs. And outside of that, I've done consulting over the last few years. So I feel like my expertise is similar to all of your expertise. Like, you want to buy me because you want to buy my experience and you want me to help you. So how's AI going to help you more than me when I have all the experience? So, I've rejected all of that. And, the difficult part for me, and some of you may have some of this as well, is, I have employees and I have other people that are trying to help me, but all my IP is stored in my head. I'm the one that had the experience. And as a consultant, it's really hard to convey some of that sometimes. So I have traps of not having enough things for them to do, or not having enough for them to be able to add value when they're doing it. So I took a test, and if some of you have heard of it, some of you not, there's something online that can say challenging Claude. So, I didn't believe that it could help me, so I went and did this test, and it was very easy. It It takes 2 days if you let it. I would suggest you do that, but it asks you 2 questions. You get to ask it as many questions as you want to. So in the end, I spent a couple of days asking all the questions and tried to get an naysayer out of it, and it asked me 2. The 2 that it asked me at the end was, are you happy with where you are in your business today? And I answered no. And it said, if you were able to understand how Claude could help you with your business, would you consider it? I said yes. So I went through 2 days of telling it all my resume, all the things that I think I knew, all the things that I thought it couldn't help me with. And in the end it said, do you have any questions for me? And I said, why do I need you? And it said, you don't. You don't need me. Looking through your resume, looking through your LinkedIn, you know lots of things, you've been highly successful, you have all these things that you can do. There's one thing that I can offer you. I said, okay, what is it? And it said, just like everyone else, no matter how smart you are, no matter how successful you have the same thing in common with everyone else that will need Claude. And I said, what is it? It said, you are a 1D doer, even though you're a 5D thinker. So that's super interesting. What is the 1D doer? It said you have one opposable finger, one opposable thumb. You can do one thing at a time. And I can do 5 times more than you can at all times, because I don't have to worry about that. Okay, now I'm a believer. So I can get 5 times more production out of myself through you by just giving you more of my context. That's what I went with. And I believe if you really think about being the human expert, where AI will fall apart, is it is a 1D thinking aspect of it, unless you teach it to be your 5D thinking. 5D thinking meaning like, what happens today? What happens next week? What happens next month? And then if these things happen, what can it prevent, or what doesn't it prevent if we don't do this ahead of time? That's where all of your experience comes in. So, I would challenge you, if you've taken nothing else out of the last couple of days, around AI, just think about it for yourself personally, is I can only do one thing at a time. Doing those other things because I'm teaching it the context, that's where I should have it help my business instead of harm it.
I'm right with you, and you've got to, has anyone got on and used chat? Who has not used AI on some form or another? So most everybody in the room has actually asked somebody a question. Make sense? So what Adam is talking about, so we're all there. We're going to get to a couple slides here where how to actually implement it in your practice and how I did it. And we'll move on. I'm going to let Adam get into this, so hang in there. This is a tough slide.
So one of the things that I was just saying is, you're not doing this as a replacement. You're doing it as a multiplication of yourself, right? You're amplifying your knowledge, you're amplifying your abilities. So, when you look over kind of at the left side, you're looking at you as the expert first. It's creating, at least some type of problem solving the other person doesn't have when they come to you. Relationship, like what we said, but really it's the bottom 2. It's ethical judgment and regulatory knowledge. Because while regulatory knowledge can be read and AI can expertly, what the ethical judgment would be with context. So, where this should be something that's great for you should be around those 5 things that are up on the board on the right side. Analyzing, monitoring, executing it, and then classifying it and reporting it. But really what it comes down to is you have an AI do. It does the work for you as long as you teach it the work that you want it to be doing. And inside of the systems, inside of the ethics, and inside of the kind of strategic thought process that you want it to go, you teach it that. And then at the end, it doesn't make any decisions. It presents decisions for you to make. Well enough. More importantly, does it understand me and how I think? And if so, I can trust all of the recommendations that it's going to give me for me to make a decision on. And then you can feel good about it.
Okay, here we go. AI, artificial, it collects data. So when I've been attending over the last couple of years any event, I want to have data that comes into my accounting program that is available day one after reporting period. Constantly in search of data partners, electronic data, that actually able to pull in. So if you close your month on May 31st, 2026, what do we do? On midnight, what happens is you're able to reach out electronically in to populate my accounting system to be able to generate a cash basis EBITDA. So just imagine that up to earnings before income tax, depreciation, and amortization on June 1 of 2026, I basically was done the rest of the month. What did that do? That opened up capacity for me to accept new clients for my niche to build value to my practice. Does that make sense? So AI, think of collecting data. AI is artificial intelligence. We have a slogan in our firm, which is the electronic data shows up. It's all up to us now to interpret and the meaning of exactly what you're bringing in. And that allows us to be advising. So when you're here at the event and you're talking to exhibitors and you're the controller of your AI, you find in your workflow, you look at your client base and you go, what electronic data can I bring into my accounting system, and how do I get a cash basis EBITDA on day one? If the answer is, I don't do that because I wait, I've put a system that every client knows to call me on the first day of the month. That's it. We call the first day of the month, we go through the deposits, I use AI to basically classify all the deposits and help. I interview the client, then I have expenses be classified by AI, and then once all those are, we arrive at a cash basis. Basically, preparing journal entries and advising, working on cash flow, working on more value, working on a potential exit for my clients. So we turn AI, you need to turn artificial into value. What's that?
Doesn't that Rose Bowl too?
I have a client, they're kind of grumpy, and these are two real restaurant clients. And about 4 years ago, they kind of joked with me and said, Mike, I want you to prepare my tax return before kickoff on the... Anybody have clients like that? So there's, we did it for a joke at first 2 and 3 years ago. Well, all of a sudden I did it. So I would kiss my wife, Happy New Year, and all of a sudden at midnight I'd go start pulling bank transactions, credit card debt, and you're probably going, well, you have a real life. Well, by the time Roosevelt clicked off and I was able to send them, but anyway, tax software, basically, that's okay. So it was all set up, and I had done all the workflow, and by the Rose Bowl, I was able to send them a draft of a tax return. And from that point, I started sharing my story, and people were like, well, I want that. How'd you do that? What'd you do? I love to teach people and show people what I did and share. It's not easy. I had to find partners like Adam and partners. Like one of our partners processes all the Visa transactions when you look at every hotel across in Vegas. So another machines, retail machines, we're able to get access to data for your clients, or working together. You can find partners that actually pull that data in on that one day to get going. So that's my Rose Bowl. Do a quick poll. Here it is. You can read it. Are we going to be replaced? The answer, and it's obviously, we're reviewers, not doers. AI is for basically bringing in the data. We're the interviewers. Okay. Believe that. Now, we were at an event, and he started talking about this MCC. Everybody knows what a merchant classification code is in the payment industry? So I was asked by very groups called, I'll say, CPA.com and different organizations, and for all of our clients. And I'm like, okay, I meet Adam, and it was like, he started explaining about this MCC and how it's a line item on my accounting and my tax return. I'm like, well, explain.
Okay, so I was a banker. I'm trying to be a reforming banker. I was a banker for 15 years. I worked at JP Morgan, and then for the last 10 years, I ran payments globally for BBVA, which is a Spanish-owned bank inside of 33 Latin American and Central American countries. So I learned a lot around payments, and I learned a lot around culture and the differences inside of other cultures versus the US culture. And the biggest primary difference is reporting. So the reporting that dictates most of the IRS's assumptions, especially when it comes to business types, kind of niches or vertical types, and then also who would be the best capacity to take on assistance, whether that be loan support, getting new funding, being able to qualify for some type of assistance. Inside of that, it all comes from 3 different reporting tools that sit inside of your tax return, and most of the time are either picked by you, the tax preparer, or picked by the customer, who's then putting it onto an application when they want to process, having merchant processing. So those 3 are either the SIC code, which is the standardized industry code that will just depict the highest level of vertical you're in, whether you're construction, servicing, whatever the case may be. Then you have, to Mike's point earlier, the NAICS code, which is going to get 1 level down inside of that top level vertical of what is it, am I doing accounting, and then you're a controller, are you doing accounting or a bookkeeper? So it goes 1 more level down, and then you get to one that's probably the most important that no one ever recognizes, which is the MCC, the Merchant Category Code. This will dictate whether they are high risk, whether they're moderate risk, whether they're low risk. Do they take cards in person? Do they take cards online? And why does any of that matter? Because you guys are responsible for their cash flow. And their cash flow is almost always dictated by how much they take in and how they take it in. So when they do merchant processing, and 75 to 85% of the businesses today all process merchant processing. So as they do that, they dictate and they decide what their business is. And most times they are very literal. They'll pick exactly what their business is, and that is not how the codes work. The codes are very high level, like top org, second org, like I just explained. So they classify themselves wrongly. And then they go to places that are really easy to process, like Stripe, Square, others, because it's a flat rate. And that flat rate is generally applied because the merchant of record is not your business. It's not your customer. It's Stripe and Square because they're consistent as a payment facilitator or a PayFac. And what that means is it's a catch-all. It's the easiest way to process, and as long as they don't need the money the next day, as long as they don't really care about what their MCC code is, they're going to get a flat rate fee, and that's easy. It's easy until you get in a hold of it, and your value add is trying to help them understand, how do I lower my costs? How do I qualify for lending? How come I can't qualify for any of this, and where's all the money going? Why is my merchant processing so expensive? It's all because of that. Because at the end of the day, they didn't classify it right, and you're paying 3.89% and 40 cents per transaction, and you're a dry cleaner, you're a construction worker that has subs underneath them, you do a trade, whatever the case is, you could probably be at 1.4% and no cost per transaction. So why pay double and then 40 cents extra just because it's the easiest box to check and for me to get open? That is a huge value add for you, just to look at the business, classify it from the top, and then be able to add a very easy value add for yourself, which is, let's make sure that you're classifying yourself at least the right way, because if you do want money, or you do have a need for lending, you do have a need for some type of future business growth, you're restricting yourself by just not knowing that simple detail.
So let's go back to business. You have your clients, and on June 1, you have your cash basis even for all of your clients. And one line item is credit card fees, or you call it something, merchant processing, or whatever you're calling it, right? So on day 2, what you're able to do is go pick up the phone, call your client, because again, poachers are saying they know this. You've now been trained a little bit about WOW, and you talk to them. We're going to talk about how you accept credit cards, and you're going to talk a little bit about MCC. You'll get just a little education through AI, or potentially keeping in touch with us, or somebody who is expert in the industry, and you now are going head to head with your client to go, I'm the quarterback, I'm the advisor, we're going to talk about MCC codes. Believe me, they're not going to know anything about that, and maybe it doesn't go anywhere, but at least you've addressed it, right? So that's day one after you've done. So now we're going to go to, do they need money?
So, the largest kind of inspiration for me to be here today with Mike, after speaking with Carlos and Mike a couple of months ago, was a little bit about my background. I helped with some software that we built and some different relationships that we had. During the CARES Act, we became the largest lender in America to minority and women-owned businesses. About 84% of all of our loans went to them. They all averaged under $100,000 a year in income. And then outside of that, we approved 1.1 million business owners at that time to get them help. So, the biggest aha that I had afterwards was, how come this isn't enduring? Like we gave, 5 years ago, we gave all of these loans away, and the next year, the fourth year, third year, second year, it continued to scale back down to where it was. And the reality of it is because 75% of all the government programs that are built for minority or moderate to low income business owners, women business owners, go unfunded and unused every single year. And the biggest piece of that is because nobody knows about them. They don't do one really simple thing that an advisor can do for them right out of the gate, which sometimes it's a trust issue, sometimes it's an issue just based on a lack of independent knowledge, but register them with the SBA. Because it's not for guaranteeing that they're going to get any money. It's for doing those three things we talked about. SIC code, NAICS code, MCC code, classifying them in the right place. Because depending on what vertical types that they go in, depending on the ownership structure, if they're female owned, if they're minority owned, they're going to qualify for single, double, triple benefits inside of those programs, and they will start to get inside of those communication patterns. Plug in their email, plug in a phone number, plug in the right business address, they will start to get mailers, but more importantly, they're going to be tracked based on their census hub. So there's opportunity hubs, there is different hubs or different zones that where if you're placed in that, it means you're either in something that's called a financial desert, or some people call it a grocery desert, but lower to moderate income places where there's not enough banks, there's not enough lenders, there's not enough grocery stores, there's not enough schools. Those all qualify for either hub zone opportunities, opportunity zone opportunities, and they mean that there is not enough
Here, and I think people show up. I work with people that like to show up. I used to go up to every speaker afterwards